Call to order the Brushy Creek Regional Utility Authority Board of Directors meeting for Wednesday, October 26. It is 6:02. Please note the roll. Vice President Baker.
Here.
Secretary Thompson.
Present.
Director Anderson.
Here.
Director Flores.
Here.
Director Kirkland.
Here.
And I'm present as well. All right. Item number 3, citizen communication, and no one is signed up to speak. Does anyone want to address the, okay, moving on. Seems like it's all staff out there. Item 4A, consider approval of the BCRUA meeting minutes for September 28th, 2022.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 5A, consider a staff report regarding the application for Texas Water Development Board SWIFT 2023 funding. Ms. Bondi.
Thank you, Madam President. This item is to brief the board way in advance, looking for what kind of funding we might want to apply to the Texas Water Development Board for SWIFT 2023. The schedule for that is the abridged application, which is a preliminary application, is submitted in late January, early February, and then the official application gets submitted in April, and the board will vote on that. The abridged application, however, is really the highest number of a loan you can apply for. So we usually go in pretty conservative and then refine it by the time we get to the actual loan application in April. So I wanted to just highlight some of the things we know that we will want funding for. And I have a table here I'll go over in detail, but so the additional loan that we will want will basically be a residual of the costs that we saw on our deep water intake when we opened, when we awarded the contract. But the TWDB SWIFT 2022 loan that we applied for, it actually included 3 projects. Not only the Phase 2 deep water intake, but also the Phase 2 permanent power project, which Pernaus Electric Co-op will be constructing, and then the Phase 1D water treatment plant expansion. So let me start with the first project. When the deep water intake contract was awarded, because the cost came in high, we used our entire $35 million contingency. So we do want to have some contingency available for this 5-year project. So the operating committee deliberated on this and recommended that we plan for funding to replenish $20 million of the $35 million at this time. And then if more is needed, we be able to apply for additional funds in the coming years. And then moving on to the second and third projects, well, we also had determined at the time we opened the proposals for the deep water intake that the cost escalation for the other 2 projects was also going to need additional funding. And the permanent power projects and the water treatment plant expansion, we're estimating about $10 million cost escalation for those. So we're looking at needing $30 million additional funding for these 3 projects. And this table shows how the costs are split between each of the 3 cities. And there's some refinements that I want to mention. So let's start with Round Rock. Round Rock had originally been planning to use cash funding for all of Phase 2 and Phase 1D. But they are now planning to use SWIFT funds for Round Rock's full obligation for Phase 1D and Phase 2, which could be a total of about $90 million. And that does include the increased construction costs and additional contingency. And they may plan to do multi-year commitments similar to Leander. So right now, they're currently projecting to use issue approximately $60 million of the $90 million in the 2023 SWIFT fund application. And then Round Rock is planning to get reimbursed for the cash funding that they have already spent on the Phase 2 project. So that total, I've got the total at the bottom, which is 60 million, and that could go up or down depending upon some of the other projects that we're looking at. Now, Cedar Park, you can see I've broken out the percentage of the total cost of each of these line items by each of the participating cities. And Cedar Park is looking at the Phase 1D line. They have obtained ARPA funding for the Phase 1D expansion. So they will, of the total of 8.6 million that they would be using, they would only need to apply for the Water Development Board funding at about $7.5 million. And Leander now does not intend to pursue additional Texas Water Development Board financing for the contingency dollars. And as the project progresses and to the extent of the supplemental funding becomes more concrete, Leander will evaluate options including cash funding plus debt financing. And the debt financing options to compare include Texas Water Development Board versus direct Leander utility revenues, certificates of obligation. And Robert Powers is here if anybody has any specific questions to him. So right now we'd be looking at about $68 million in the SWIFT 2023. And of course we'll have a few months to refine that. There's some additional costs we're incurring that cities may want to, on other projects that they might want to put in there, but just wanted to go over that with you since we're having a bond themed night. Does anybody have any questions right now on that?
So I guess I just want to make sure I understand. So on the 23 application, 68 is between Round Rock and Cedar Park, and Leander's just deciding to go on this on their own or fund this on their own bucket of money?
Robert, do you want to address what your plan is at this point? Thank you. Robert Powers, Financial Director.
Sure. The
For Leander.
Leander's plan has always been to take the drawdown from the approved $120 million from the Water Development Board over 3 phases. We did one last year. We're doing one this year. We don't think the timing is right to do the third drawdown. This is anticipated to be a 5 to 6 year project. So with Leander's $120 million initial commitment, we didn't think it was financially in our best interest to take all of that at once. So as the project develops, and then there's a determination in the next 12 to 18 months of how much contingency will actually be needed, then Leander will either put in its cash or borrow money, similar to what Round Rock had planned last year. Now they're making a little switch on their plans, but that's our plan.
So would I just interpret that more as a timing issue that you just don't think you need the funds at the moment, but?
Absolutely, it's timing and flexibility. So.
All right, but I guess I just want to know as a member of this board that you're confident and you know you have access to the funds if and when you need them, right? I mean, is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Robert.
Question. So I think I know the answer to it, but each city has the flexibility of choosing their own financing, and so it doesn't put the SWIFT loan in jeopardy that one of the partners does not participate, right? It's completely independent of that decision. Is that fair?
We have an expert here on the SWIFT loans. Maybe we could, my understanding is that the Water Development Board looks at each city independently on what they can produce in terms of their own revenues to back up the bonds.
Okay, and that was my understanding. I was just looking for support of that understanding, so.
You look eager to say something.
Always eager. Yeah. And I could, Ms. Bondi's absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm here for the bond sale.
Okay, okay. But do you have anything you want to add just to clarify? Okay, great. Moving on then. So we'll move on to resolutions. Item 6A, consideration and action on a resolution by the Board of Directors of the Brushy Creek Regional Utility Authority Incorporated, authorizing issuance of Brushy Creek Regional Utility Authority Incorporated, City of Leander, Texas Contract Revenue Bonds, Brushy Creek Regional Water Treatment and Distribution Project, Series 2022, establishing the procedures for selling and delivering the bonds and resolving other matters incident and relating to the issuance, payment, security, sale, and delivery of such bonds.
Thank you, Madam President. We have Leander's attorney, Gregory Miller, the partner with Bickerstaff, here to describe further what this resolution is for.
Good evening, President and board members and Ms. Bondi. Gregory Miller with Bickerstaff, Heath, Delgado, Acosta, and we represent the City of Leander for their public finance matters. And I apologize if I'm speaking too loud. Just let me know to step back from the microphone. Just to give you a quick overview of this transaction, as Mr. Powers mentioned, there was a commitment of about $119 million for the City of Leander, and the city decided it would be best to take it out in different phases. And as you recall, last November, the city drew down about $40 million, and this is the second tranche of $40 million. Just to give you an overview, the interest rates start off at about 2.57% and escalate gradually over the next 30 years to about 3.89%. There is an early redemption feature that after 10 years, the bonds can be redeemed with no penalty. Some of the other key items is that the interest payments will begin February 1st of 2023, and then you'll make payments. There'll be payments on February and August of each subsequent year. The city, as part of this, has committed to setting aside funds sufficient for debt service and monthly level installments. Part of their pledge is to raise sufficient rates to make sure that they make the payments. You know, those are really the high points, and I don't know if I'm missing anything that you're particularly interested in. This bond resolution basically sets out the terms of the loan in terms of payment rates, how the payments actually get facilitated. There are some components in there about specific Texas Water Development Board requirements that they require of all their bond sales, particularly reporting on the progress of the project, what you might do with surplus proceeds, if there are any, and just mechanics of the project along those lines. And there are commitments to make sure that the bonds stay tax exempt. And there's also commitments for certain disclosures to be made to the SEC and annual reporting requirements, which your financial advisor does for y'all. I could go on forever about bonds, so I'll stop now. Please let me know if you have any questions. Oh, I have one more thing, I'm sorry. We're going to plan to get these to the Attorney General, the transcript documents, which Ms. Bondi and you will be signing after the meeting. We'll submit them to the Attorney General and line up for a closing at the beginning of December. So.
Board, any questions? All right. So the resolution is before us.
Motion to approve.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Resolution passes. Item 6B, consider a resolution approving an amendment to the BCRUA annual operating budget.
Thank you, Madam President. This item's pretty straightforward because the board has just approved the issuance of additional bonds, and the debt service of those bonds is not yet in our budget. We need to amend the budget to add that debt service. So that's what this item does. For this current year, the budget increase will be, $2.438 million for annual debt service payment. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Resolution is before us.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 6C, consider a resolution approving change order number 1 with Thale Construction Company for the repair of the 36-inch underwater pipeline.
Thank you, Madam President. This item is regarding some work that we needed to have done out on our raw water barge. And we, as you all are quite aware, we already have a contractor, Thale Construction Company, who is doing some underwater work there. And since this particular project, which is a broken chemical feed line that takes, it was part of the original zebra mussel control project, where we are adding a chemical to prevent zebra mussels from attaching to our equipment, particularly the raw water line, that had chemical storage on shore and then run out through a pipeline that goes out to the raw water barge and then discharges into the raw water pipeline. That pipeline needed repair, so I am asking Aaron Archer, our engineer, to come up and explain the project.
Good evening. Yeah, as Karen had mentioned, a few years ago, you may recall, we did a zebra mussel control project out on the lake. When zebra mussels showed up on the lake, they started very quickly colonizing raw water intakes and transmission systems. And so this chemical feed system was built at the Cedar Park plant to allow us to treat raw water at the intake to prevent them from infesting the system from the lake all the way up to the treatment plant. And the system was put in operation, tested out well, and was in operation for a couple of years. And then the chemical feed lines failed. They're basically an HDPE feed line. And so they need to be replaced, and we've got the contractor out on the lake. He's got all the equipment that can be used to accommodate that repair expeditiously. We have the material in hand to get it done, and so this is a change order to complete that repair while they're out there.
And we are proposing to change order this into Thale's contract, since they already are out there, and we have been having difficulty getting anyone else to propose on this repair. So they've agreed to do it, and we think this is a good price. I will also add that since this is a change order to Thale's contract, we are also the original contract for Thale, they had estimated about $1.6 million. While they did complete the project within the time frame that we needed, they had estimated that it was going to take 7 days, and it took them really about twice that long. So they have given us a proposal for increasing charges for that, plus some change that was made to add some additional support piers out there to the tune of about $600,000 in additional fees. So the operating committee is reviewing that. We're asking them for backup information, and we haven't made a decision about that, but I just want to make you aware of that as well. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
So Aaron, the line for the chemicals for the mussels, was that premature failure, and does this repair gonna fail in 2 years again, or do we have a more permanent solution?
Yeah, I mean, it was a failure that occurred after the warranty period on the work. So a case in which it tested fine and continued to be in operation until after the warranty period. I suspect that on that HDPE line, they did not fuse some of those pieces of pipe together correctly. When we get that line pulled, we'll look at it and take a visual inspection of it and some photographs to see what we find. Right now, it's inside of a separate carrier line, so we can't put our eyes on it yet.
And so the line that's going to repair it, the new replacement, I mean, will that last just as long, just beyond the warranty period, or?
Yeah, the line that we've ordered to replace it with, to eliminate the likelihood of there being any kind of bad fusion welds on that HDPE line. We've just ordered a custom, very long piece of it that's all coiled up that can avoid that issue, so we don't have to worry about the contractor messing that up.
And that chemical line still stays in place once the deep water intake? I mean, is that separate and
No.
distinct, or is that part of it, or?
It's temporary, so when the floating intake is decommissioned, when the deep water intake comes online, this facility no longer needs to be operational either. So it'll get us to 2027.
Thank you.
I had a couple questions. Just follow-up questions, though. So if we pull the line out and it's not a weld, I guess we'll just make an engine. Will there be time to adjust the design if we find out it's another issue versus the weld? I mean, are you fairly confident that's what's going on at this point, or don't know?
Fairly confident at this point.
Okay. And then, again, piggybacking on his question, so on the new system, that's already part of the budget and part of the design. This is completely separate of the new deep water intake.
Correct.
Okay.
The new deep water intake has a new treatment facility onshore adjacent to the intake at the maintenance building site in Valente.
Okay. But similar, we'll run a feed down to the intake to treat
That's
at the
correct.
intake? Okay. All right, thank you.
I appreciated the drawings being included, but I don't necessarily have any issue with the change order price, but I personally would like to see the breakdown of what's in this 167, 885, 99, just for my own information, if that's possible.
We can get a breakdown from them.
Thank you.
And so we're anticipating if you guys agree to whatever other adjustments to the contract, we'll see that next month probably, or?
Yes, at that point, I'll basically be informing you. That contract, since it's an emergency contract and the contractor didn't really know exactly what they were going to see when they got out there, it doesn't really have a cap, but I'll let you know how that works out.
And I wanted to mention, in the course of that repair, there were several times in that repair that I provided them some engineering direction to provide some additional support and do some additional work on that line based on the real-time feedback I was getting as it was being completed.
I'm gonna ask that, so thank you. Yeah. All right, any other questions? Resolutions before us.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 7, Director closing comments. Director Kirkland.
Thank you for attending this evening.
Director Anderson.
Thank you and good evening.
Secretary Thompson.
Good night.
Vice President Baker.
Good night.
And Director Flores.
Good night.
All right, and good night, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
That's always